The sky fell in the middle of Nathan Cole's lunch break. He had just bitten into the last hydro-grown tomato he'd cultivated with loving care in his recycled plastic greenhouse dome when the tremor hit, sharp and sudden, like the planet had hiccuped. The tomato fell out of his hand and hit the ground with a squish that felt personal. "Really?" he muttered, checking the dome's seismic sensors. Nothing major on the system. Then again, the dome's tech was about 15 years behind. Corporate had promised a software update sometime around the next ice age. He pulled on his jacket, patched in 4 places, one by duct tape and another by a hopeful application of chewing gum, and stepped outside into the brittle daylight. Earth's atmosphere had been on a decline since the Great Coughing Fit of 2197, so the sky was a perpetual orange smog with a pinch of purple, like someone had overcooked a sunset. The crash site wasn't hard to find. A trail of melted scrub and twisted glassed earth led toward the eastern ridge, where a thin spiral of smoke climbed upward, like a question mark too shy to form words. Nathan blinked against the haze and adjusted the settings on his retinal visor. The HUD flickered, outlined the crash in a green box, and labeled it. Foreign object detected. Probability of not killing you, 22%. "That's oddly specific," he said, pocketing a wrench because it made him feel safer. No one respected a man with a clipboard, but a man with a wrench? That said, "I'm not here to fix you, but I could, emotionally or otherwise." The object had left a crater about the size of his kitchen, which wasn't saying much, since his kitchen was technically also his laundry room and his backup sleeping nook. Smoke curled from the edge of the scorched earth, and the air smelled like burnt almonds and regret. He didn't expect to find a body. It wasn't a human body. It looked human, mostly, pale, almost luminous skin stretched over limbs that were too elegant, too perfect, like they'd been sculpted by someone who found bones optional. Long black hair spilled across the ground like liquid shadow, tangled with debris and bits of singed moss. Her armor was scorched and cracked, formed of interlocking hex plates that shimmered faintly even in ruin. And her ears were long, not elf long, but I hear your heartbeat from 3 towns away long. They tapered back like sculpted blades, twitching faintly. Her eyes snapped open. Nathan flailed. "Whoa, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt your nap? Crash-induced nap? Wait, are you okay?" The woman hissed. Not the snake-like hiss of villainy, but a weary, low sound like someone had just asked her to work overtime on a Friday. Her lips parted, revealing fangs. Not metaphorical fangs. Not "she has a sharp smile" fangs. Real, honest-to-gravity teeth designed for puncturing things that probably did not enjoy being punctured. "Oh," Nathan said, "you're one of those aliens." She tried to rise, then collapsed. The armor buzzed, attempting some kind of self-repair, but the systems were clearly on their last bite. She looked at him, feral and desperate. Nathan held up his hands. "Okay, look, I'm guessing you're not here for a neighborhood cookout, but I'm not exactly seasoned vampire chow either, so maybe we can start with names?" She blinked warily. "I'm Nathan. Cole, botanist, sometimes engineer, full-time confusion specialist." She did not answer. Instead, her eyes tracked the movement of his pulse. He could feel her hunger like radiation, ancient and sharp. "You look like you need a snack," he said, "and not the me kind. Hold on." He rummaged in his satchel and pulled out a nutrition pack. It was engineered for high-caloric survival and tasted like oatmeal had lost a bet. He unwrapped it and offered it with the kind of hope one normally reserved for parleying with dragons. She sniffed it, then took it, bit, chewed, and gagged so violently that her entire body jolted. "Okay," Nathan said, "not your cuisine. Got it." She stared at him, confusion wrestling with instinct in her expression. Then, with effort, she pushed herself into a seated position. Her voice, when it came, was hoarse and resonant. "You gave sustenance, not blood." "Well, you seem peckish, and I left my volunteer blood donor badge at home," he said, trying a grin. "It worked on the rabbits back at the dome. Mostly." She studied him as if trying to identify which part of him was defective. "You fear me not." "Oh, I'm terrified," Nathan said cheerfully. "But panic gives me hives, and I ran out of antihistamines last Tuesday." A pause, then softly. "Sarava. Gesundheit." My name, she said, glaring. Right, Sarava. Beautiful. Very vampiric. Love the vowels. She stood slowly, unsteadily, one hand bracing against the rim of the crater. Her legs trembled under her, and Nathan instinctively moved to help her, then hesitated. She was a being who had likely drained a few dozen lives before breakfast on her homeworld. Touching her without permission felt like asking a chainsaw if it wanted a hug. Still, he offered his arm. She looked at it, then at him, and after a long moment of insulted silence, took it. You will regret this, she murmured. Most of my regrets involve public karaoke and expired pudding, he said, leading her toward the dome. She tilted her head. What is karaoke? Something I'll regret explaining. Behind them, the crater sizzled, and the air shimmered oddly, as if reality itself were still adjusting to her presence. Nathan didn't see it, but Sarava did. Her eyes narrowed. They will come, she whispered. Nathan glanced at her. You mean like the authorities? She shook her head. Worse. My kind. Hunters of betrayal. They track the scent of restraint. Wow, he said. Sounds like my last landlord. She didn't smile, but something softened in her jaw. They reached the dome just as the last rays of filtered sunlight caught the edge of the shattered horizon. Nathan opened the access hatch and held it for her. She paused. You should not help me. I'm not great at shoulds, he said. Besides, you didn't eat me. That counts for something. She stepped inside, silent as shadow, and in the quiet behind them, the wind carried a scent neither of them noticed, a distortion in the air, a vibration felt not through the ears, but the spine. Something was already following the trail, but for now in the botany dome filled with overgrown tomatoes, accidental science projects, and the worst nutritional bars in the quadrant, the vampire woman sat down on a broken crate and said, You are strange, Nathan Cole. Thank you, he said. I try. Sarava tried to kill a tomato on her third night. Nathan had stepped out for a moment, just long enough to recycle some air filters and chase a rogue squirrel drone out of his compost bin, when he returned to find her crouched in the hydroponics section of the dome, fangs bared, hissing at a cluster of heirloom reds, as if they'd just insulted her ancestors. They don't bite, you know, he said, cautiously setting down the filter. They moved, she replied, voice tight with restrained instinct. They're plants, Sarava. They're legally not allowed to move. They swayed. Aggressively. Nathan picked up a tomato, gave it a gentle squeeze, then held it up. This guy, I call him Larry. He's a pacifist. She looked at him, looked at the tomato, then slowly straightened. This planet is deeply unwell. Welcome to Earth, he said. We're only slightly radioactive and emotionally repressed. She followed him back toward the main section of the dome, armor clicking softly with each step. It was still cracked in places, like eggshells held together by magnetic stubbornness, but its inner cores had begun to pulse faintly again. Nathan figured that meant it was healing, or plotting. Over the past 2 days, she had barely spoken unless prompted, mostly watching him with the wary stillness of someone unsure whether to flee or strike. She asked questions sometimes, strange ones wrapped in ancient phrasing. Why do you live alone? Do you not have a bloodkin pack? I had a roommate once, he said. He tried to microwave a fork. We don't talk anymore. And you cultivate food for pleasure? Technically, it's for survival, but I pretend it's a hobby, so I feel like I have a personality. Sarava had taken to perching on a stack of storage crates at night, half hidden in shadows, observing him as he moved between the lab terminals and the greenhouse. He tried to act natural, which in his case meant humming old pop songs and talking to himself about soil acidity. By the 4th night, she began to laugh, not a full laugh. Just a quick exhale, amused and slightly confused, when he slipped on an algae patch and yelled, I regret everything. He looked up at her from the floor, algae sticking to his sleeve. Was that a laugh? I emitted a breath in response to absurd stimuli. That's a laugh. You are absurd. I try. She tilted her head, examining him. You do not fear me, still. He shrugged. I mean, you've got the aesthetic of a galactic apex predator, sure. But you also apologized to my fern yesterday when you bumped it. It startled me. It's a fern. It looked judging. He grinned, then sobered slightly. I don't think you're going to hurt me. You are incorrect. Statistically, I'm incorrect about a lot of things. I once thought quantum lasagna was a viable dinner. Sarava's smile didn't reach her eyes. The thirst does not leave. I bury it beneath stillness. But stillness is not peace. He didn't respond for a while. Then quietly, is there anything I can do to help? You already did, she said. You gave me a choice. The power flickered, not the casual flicker of a dying fuse. This was a pulse, a deep thrum that made the dome's reinforced walls creak as if something vast had just blinked in the dark. Nathan rushed to the console. Systems were stable, no intrusions, no atmospheric anomalies. But the air felt heavier. Sarava was already standing, eyes glowing faintly. They are close. The tomatoes? No, she said, with the weariness of a parent correcting a child for the 5th time. The hollow suns. Sounds like a metal band. They are not music, she said, voice sharp. They are anti-life, forged to purge what my kind became. Nathan checked the external scanners. Nothing visible, no heat signatures, no movement. Just the same dust-blown wasteland and decaying satellite towers. Are you sure? I feel them. It is not something that lies. He nodded. All right, we prep. For what? For a very unpleasant reunion, he said. Also, I should probably hide Larry. He led her to the storage vault, a room filled with emergency rations, obsolete lab equipment, and a life-size cardboard cutout of President Calden that Nathan had never found the courage to recycle. Sarava examined the vault's magnetic locks, frowned, then sliced through one with a talon-like fingertip. That was for security, Nathan said, watching the sparks. It was insufficient. He pointed toward a stack of shielding tiles. You could rest behind those, they're lead-lined. Not because I expected company, just because the last guy in logistics thought they made good pizza ovens. I will not hide. Then what's the plan? I confront them. Alone. Right, Nathan said. Just like the tomatoes. She raised an eyebrow. This is not a plant. He put a hand on her arm gently. You don't have to do this alone. Her eyes locked onto his hand. For a second, the thirst roared behind them, like a wave about to break. But she exhaled, slow and steady. If I fail, they will take you, to use against me. Then don't fail. You are not a warrior. Nope, but I am stubborn, and I make a mean mushroom stew. That is not a qualification for survival. It is if you add enough spice. The lights flickered again. This time something blinked into view at the horizon. A distortion, a ripple, like heat over metal, but colder, wronger. Sarava stepped to the dome's edge, her armor now humming with threads of dormant power awakening. They are here. Nathan stood beside her, wrench in hand. Guess we better make a good first impression? She looked at him, strange and unreadable. Then finally, if I fall, you run. You can't order me around. I can. I'll pretend to obey. Her expression was a storm barely held at bay. Strange man. Hungry woman. The air outside twisted, and the stars above began to dim. Nathan's idea of a battle plan involved coffee, a playlist of 22nd century synth jazz, and reinforcing the dome doors with gardening equipment. He tied together 2 rakes, a trowel, and a half-dismantled solar toaster to form what he called a defensive matrix. Sarava stared at it for several long seconds. That is a pile of farm tools. It's a symbol of hope, Nathan said, adjusting the trowel with solemn care. And possibly tetanus. She walked past him to the access hatch and touched the inner seal with 2 fingers. Her armor pulsed once, reading the material, then emitted a low harmonic hum that sank into the structure. The hatch vibrated, stiffened, and locked with a finality Nathan didn't like. What did you do? Reinforce the barrier with harmonic compression. Nothing leaves or enters until it fractures. That's not how doors usually work, Sarava. Doors are meant to open. This one must not. He considered arguing, then decided against it. She looked like someone who had survived wars measured in centuries and wasn't particularly impressed by bickering botanists. Instead, he poured her a mug of lukewarm brew from the lab's nutritional reservoir. She sniffed it, suspicious. What is this? Coffee. Well, synthesized coffee, made from bark, caffeine culture, and something labeled stimulant compound 7B. It might be illegal. She sipped it, blinked, then blinked again. I feel faster. Oh, good, Nathan said, taking a sip himself. That means it's working. If you suddenly start reciting poetry or rearranging atoms, just let me know. The dome lights flickered. This time they didn't come back. Emergency glow strips engaged, bathing the interior in low blue light. Outside the dome, a second shimmer passed across the air, like a sigh through glass. Sarava turned, eyes gleaming with that eerie internal glow. They are phasing closer. Define phasing in a way that doesn't involve existential dread. They exist partially out of sync with your space-time. They slip. They hunt through the seams of reality. Oh, Nathan said, like salesmen. She didn't ask what that meant. She was already moving to the observation hatch. Through the reinforced glass, he saw shapes, humanoid outlines flickering in and out, like broken holograms. No faces, just smooth voids beneath cracked helmets, silver cords running like veins over dark armor. They moved without walking, flicking through space in jagged intervals, their forms never quite whole. Nathan leaned closer to the glass. Okay, now I'm scared. They are the hollow suns, Sarava said softly. Once my kin. Now they serve the void accord. They hunt those who disobey, who resist. Are you sure they're not here for the coffee? Her glance was dry. They consume light, not bitterness. Well, that's one of us, Nathan muttered. The first pulse hit the dome. It wasn't sound. It was pressure like gravity had hiccuped. The walls buckled slightly, then corrected themselves. The plants shivered. The tomatoes dropped from their vines en masse, bouncing off the ground like tiny red sacrifices. Nathan picked one up and cradled it. Larry, no. Sarava moved toward the door, every motion fluid, precise. Her armor responded to her intent, plates aligning with sharper angles, energy collecting at her palms. I will speak to them, she said. Negotiate? Stall. He grabbed her wrist. What if they won't talk? Then they die. I meant you. She didn't answer. He stepped in front of her. You told me you didn't want to hurt anymore, that you were trying, that you wanted a choice. I chose, she said and gently moved him aside. The access hatch vibrated again. This time, the harmonic lock flickered. The shimmer outside coalesced into one solid form. It was taller than Sarava, with armor that glowed at the seams, pale blue like dead stars. Its faceplate cracked open, revealing a dark cavity filled with shifting static. Nathan took a shaky breath. Tell me that's not its actual face. That is its absence, Sarava said. The static creature raised a hand. The dome's outer panel creaked. A warning blared. External integrity compromised. Structural failure imminent. Nathan reached for his wrench. Sarava reached for her mind. She didn't shout. She sang. A note, clear, resonant, unearthly, burst from her throat and struck the dome like a bell. The whole structure trembled. The creature outside flickered violently, shrieked without sound, and retreated half a step. What was that? Nathan asked. The song of claiming, Sarava replied. It binds my right to this space. Well, sing it louder, maybe in C major. The creature replied in kind, not with song, but with a distortion. The stars outside twisted, forming a circle of darkness behind it. From that hole stepped two more hollow suns. One of them floated rather than walked, trailing strands of void light like cobwebs. Sarava's voice lowered. 3. I may hold for minutes, perhaps less. Nathan looked around. Do you need energy, power, snacks? I need time. I've got a time regulator in the lab, he said. It's broken, but if you don't mind your seconds feeling like Thursdays, it might help. Sarava didn't smile, but her eyes flickered with something. Gratitude, perhaps, or disbelief. He ran, back through the dome, past the twitching fern, into the storage room where broken tech went to die. He yanked open a panel, dug through coils and dust, and pulled out a rusted regulator, still pulsing faintly with chronal residue. He jammed in a battery, slapped it twice, and sprinted back. Sarava caught it mid-air as he tossed it to her. "Strap it to your core node," he said. "Might buy you 30 seconds of hypertemporal clarity, or it might explode." "Then it is not unlike me," she said. The creatures closed in. Sarava activated the regulator. Her outline blurred, shimmered, split for a fraction of a moment, then refocused. She moved. Nathan had never seen motion like it. She was stillness interrupted by blinding bursts, here, then there, then in midair, kicking a hollow sun so hard its helmet cracked sideways. She danced through physics with casual disregard. But there were three, and she was weakening. One of the creatures struck her square in the back. She fell. Nathan screamed. The creature turned toward him. He didn't think. He threw Larry. The tomato splatted uselessly off his chest, but it was enough of a distraction. Sarava surged upward and drove her hand into the creature's core. A burst of light, ultraviolet, scorching, exploded outward. The hollow sun collapsed. The others hissed, retreating. Nathan ran to her. She knelt, gasping, blood on her lips. "Not enough." He grabbed her shoulders. "You made a promise." She looked up. "I remember." The last creature raised its arms. The void rippled. Nathan stood in front of her, unarmed, terrified, unmoving. The creature hesitated. Something in its stance shifted. Then without a sound it vanished. Gone. Sarava stared at him. "You stood." "I do that sometimes. For me. I mean, mostly for Larry. But yes." She laughed then. A real one. Then passed out. Nathan found himself learning the subtle difference between unconscious alien vampire and hibernating space apex predator. One was limp and troublingly pale. The other was Sarava, glowing faintly, breathing slow and shallow, and still radiating the kind of quiet menace that made the toaster refuse to work near her. "Come on," he muttered, kneeling beside her. "You saved my life. You're not allowed to die. That's the rule. I made it up just now, but it's official." She didn't stir. The life monitor clipped to her armor gave off a steady blue pulse, somewhere between hibernating and defying death out of spite. Nathan decided that was hopeful. He checked her pulse twice, cursed his own incompetence 3 times, and finally decided to do what he did best when overwhelmed: make soup. He dragged a portable heat coil out from storage and began chopping nutrient-rich greens while muttering to himself. "You save a vampire from ancient space assassins, and they repay you by collapsing in your arms like a gothic romance protagonist." Classic, the tomatoes were off limits. After Larry's martyrdom, Nathan had declared them a memorial species. By the time the broth was bubbling, Sarava stirred. Just barely. A twitch in her fingers. Her lips parted. "I smell roots." Nathan rushed over, holding a steaming bowl. "It's not much, but it's warm, and it won't offend your biology unless you're allergic to carrots." She opened one eye. "Carrots are forbidden in the southern nebulae." "That's fair. They're smug." She tried to sit up, failed, and settled for lifting a hand. Her armor responded sluggishly, reinforcing her limbs with slow arcs of energy. "How long?" "You've been out about 14 hours. I was about to start composing poetry in your honor." "I would prefer soup." Smart choice. The poem rhymed void with android and went downhill from there. She took the bowl and drank without ceremony. He watched her, nervous. "Is it helping?" he asked. She nodded, then grimaced. "It is. Bland." "Good. That means it's working." She finished the soup and wiped her mouth with the back of her gauntlet. "The hollow suns did not expect you. Few people do. You stood between me and death. I was mostly hoping to confuse them long enough for you to wake up." "Why?" "Because I like you," he said, and then regretted the honesty immediately. "You know, in the way a guy likes someone who hasn't tried to eat him. Yet." She stared at him, long and unreadable. "You are strange. And you're a half-starved space vampire being hunted by interdimensional killbots. So I think we're even." She smiled, just slightly. "You could have run." "Yeah, but then who would water the plants?" The lights above flickered as the dome systems rebooted. Power had returned gradually in fits and spurts. Outside, the hollow suns were gone, but Nathan knew better than to trust silence in deep space. Sarava stood slowly. I must rebuild my strength. Rest then. You've earned it. Number feeding restores me fastest. He froze, she noticed. I will not take from you. I know, he said, but it still feels like I'm offering a jug of orange juice to a black hole. She walked to the console, examined the readouts. There is wildlife nearby, creatures I can draw from without death. Assuming the squirrel drones don't mug you first. She tilted her head. Squirrel drones. Long story, don't pet anything with antennae. He moved beside her, scanning the outer fields. The local biosphere had recovered well since the last solar flare, and the ecosystem now supported several Earth-compatible species, including something that resembled goats, if goats had 6 legs and emitted radio static when scared. Sarava pointed. That one, it will suffice. You're going to bite the static goat? Not bite, drain, through resonance. I feel like I should write an ethics paper about this. She made her way outside, armor shielding her from the harsh winds. Nathan watched through the dome's camera feed as she knelt beside the creature, placed her palm over its chest and sang, low and harmonic. The goat shivered, blinked in static, then calmed. Moments later she stood, and the goat wobbled off, dazed but unharmed. That was kind of beautiful, he whispered. I told you, she said over the comm. We are not monsters, not always. When she returned, her posture was stronger, her steps more certain, the glow in her eyes steadier. Nathan handed her a protein bar. Dessert? She took it. This one tastes of gravel. That's the peanut flavor. Why? We don't talk about the peanut division. She remained her same tall, long-eared, scowling self, but there was something different in how the light clung to her, how the shadows respected her. She glowed faintly, not with power, but with something warmer, human almost. The Eclipticon flinched. You are corrupted. I am evolved. She raised her hand, and the glow from Nathan's memory poured from her palm. The light struck the Eclipticon, and it screamed, not in pain but in disbelief. Mercy cannot destroy me. Then it will outlast you. She stepped forward. The creature reeled. Reality shivered. Nathan, watching from a safe-ish distance, muttered, Go get him, Space Dracula. Sarava walked straight through the creature. Not struck it, not banished it. Walked through it. And as she passed, she left something behind. Resonance, harmony, something soft and fierce. The Eclipticon writhed, then cracked, then folded in on itself like a bad decision in reverse. The rift closed. The wind calmed. The stars realigned, pretending they'd never wobbled. Sarava turned to Nathan. It is done. He blinked. Did you just emotion blast a god thing to death? I shared with it what you gave me, and it could not hold it. I mean, yeah, I'm emotionally exhausting. She smiled. Actually smiled. I will not argue. They walked back to the dome, which had definitely seen better days. The power flickered, the hydroponics hummed sadly, and the squirrel drones were nesting in the ceiling again. Nathan surveyed the wreckage. Well, guess we're going to need another toaster. Sarava sat beside him, still glowing faintly. I will miss this place. You're leaving? Number we are. He looked up. Wait, what? You gave me a reason to stay, but I cannot remain still. There are others like me, others who need what you gave. Not blood, not fear, just a chance. And you want me to come with you? I do. He stared at the stars, then at the melted snack bag, then at her. Okay, but I get to drive at least once. You can try. They packed what they could salvage, seeds, notes, the good mugs, and boarded her ship. It was more grown than built, sleek and lined with faint veins of energy. Nathan took one look at the console and asked, So where's the go button? It responds to voice. Oh, cool. Go nothing happened. Sarava sighed. You have to ask nicely. Oh, please go? The ship shivered, then rose. Nathan whooped as the dome shrank beneath them. This is insane. Correct. And we're just leaving everything behind? No, she said. We are taking everything forward. They rose through the clouds past the scars of old battles and the ruins of forgotten packs. As the stars welcomed them, Nathan leaned back in his chair. "So," he said, "do I get a cool vampire name now? Like Night Fang or the Snack Bringer?" Sarava chuckled. "You are Nathan. That is enough." He smiled. "You're not so bad yourself, Sarava." She turned to him, eyes soft. "I made you a promise. Forever. Then let's see how far forever goes."